Cyberpunk 2077 went from hero to zero in a matter of no time at all, coming from the highs of the good old days of pre-launch hype to the stark reality that many couldn't even boot up the game when they finally got their hands on it. I think it's fair to say that Cyberpunk 2077 received what is likely the biggest internet beatdown in the history of gaming, at least in our modern era. I only have to mention Cyberpunk being pulled from the Sony store, or investors suing developer CD Projekt Red over the launch of the game to conjure up a time where things were just flat out depressing. Now, whether or not the severity of this lashing from the jury of journalists, YouTubers, Redditors, blog writers was fair or not can be debated. Social media has made it hard to discern truth from fiction. It seems like every game that comes out in the social media era has just not been up to standards, is dropped promptly after a certain honeymoon period, and is whoever developed the game's worst colossal failure ever, destined for the graveyard. At least that's what it appears to be if you go by whatever YouTubers or people on Twitter or Reddit have to say about a specific game. The current life cycle of games is so short because we live in a revolving door of releases. One game comes out, you play it, maybe you enjoy it, maybe you go on to read about it on Reddit or look up a guide on the game on YouTube. Eventually, these platforms and their algorithms serve you with videos and posts with the highest upvotes, which are many times the most critical opinions, especially if the game has had a rocky launch, was feature deprived, or just not up to the standards in various categories. Bad news sells, and with this machine-driven manipulation, you're increasingly exposed to these negative comments and opinions, creating a cascade of similar videos and content being promoted as a result, creating this snowball-like effect, reinforcing whatever ideal is going to be putting money into the pocket of those who make their wage through clicks. We're all guilty of this, including myself. But this phenomenon also affects your perception of the game. It infects you and you start to think, hey, if all these people aren't enjoying the game, why exactly am I? It's classic outrage culture. The truth is that influencers are a small subset of gamers who influence a slightly larger subset of players. But the people actually enjoying the game itself are not ranting or raving about it online, they're playing it. I'm not saying all of this to absolve Cyberpunk from criticism, but just to paint a picture of what public opinion looks like molded by content creators, rage bait articles, and what have you. Cyberpunk 2077 will go down as the biggest initial victim of this information age stomping. But can and will Cyberpunk 2077 also give us the biggest turnaround or comeback in video game history? Today we're going to explore both sides of the coin, the stakes associated with Phantom Liberty, and if Cyberpunk can do what at one point appeared to be impossible. But first, let's geek out on another Cyberpunk-themed game with today's sponsor, Cyberpunk hack and slasher Wanted Dead. Wanted Dead is a single-player experience with fluid gung-fu combat, where your reward for playing is mastery, not some silly little cosmetic. Wanted Dead has the cojones to demand more of you as the player. Harkening back to the OG roots of the Xbox 360 era, one of my personal favorites, Wanted Dead offers agile, skill-intensive combat set in an exciting and vibrant cyberpunk world. Switch easily between katanas and firearms and perform stylish combos to carve your path to the top. Chock full of pop culture references, advanced weaponry, over 50 unique finishing animations, and with a late 80s, early 90s feel, Wanted Dead is complete with everything you could really want if you are a cyberpunk nut. Unleash chaos with 50% off Wanted Dead during the Steam Summer Sale ending July 13th. You can also get Wanted Dead on Epic Games, PlayStation 4 and 5, as well as the Xbox Series and One. Check out the link in the description and pinned comment to grab yourself a copy. Now let's get back to our video. So can Cyberpunk 2077 make the biggest comeback in the history of gaming? Well, let's give you guys an example with the current biggest comeback in the modern era of gaming, No Man's Sky by Hello Games. Teased in 2013, No Man's Sky's unique selling proposition was scale. They marketed the game as this completely procedurally generated universe where you could fly anywhere, become anyone, and explore the infinite possibilities of the universe. Despite this not being developed by one of the tried and true AAA game studios, there was an enormous amount of hype behind No Man's Sky, and their pitch of this vast space exploration saga. The space adventure game to end all space adventure games. The game launched and gamers realized that No Man's Sky's world was completely lifeless, with many elements of the game feeling unfinished. Marketing hype most definitely created lofty expectations that the game just couldn't follow through on, especially being a smaller game studio with fewer resources than say the likes of Activision, Blizzard, or Rockstar. It clearly launched in a broken and unacceptable state and needed much more time in the oven. The game's launch was a disaster, and the internet did what it does best, ripped it an entirely new one. Is this beginning to sound familiar? The best part of this story is that despite all of this, Hello Games did not give up. They added so many features over the years that followed and reworked many of its existing systems to fall in line with what was expected. With big patches like 1.5 and 2.0, again, does this sound familiar? No Man's Sky made massive leaps in terms of quality. In its current state, No Man's Sky is arguably the fully realized game it was marketed to be, a testament to the ability to repair public opinion alongside completely revamping and reworking a game for the better. Now Hello Games reinvested what was earned through the launch of No Man's Sky to help affect these changes over a period of time. And Cyberpunk 2077 has followed an eerily similar timeline. If Hello Games can make a 360-degree turnaround where the developers actually deliver on their promises, then a studio with much more manpower, many more resources, and much more money can absolutely do the same. CD Projekt Red has not looked at No Man's Sky as the perfect case study for them. They're absolutely insane. It is the template they need to follow, only to deviate in scenarios where they can over-deliver without over-promising. CD Projekt Red's Paweł Sasko has mentioned to Polish media that, quote, "It's hard to find an element that we haven't improved." And other devs have been quoted saying that this is the version of the game that they wish they shipped. And with new content and PL bringing people back with a brand new story in District, 2.0 has the potential to recapture the hype that was generated pre-launch. Another hint that CDPR is more than capable of creating the biggest gaming comeback of all time is that they are no strangers to fixing their games post-release. The Witcher 3 released in a buggy state with many quality of life features missing, and we all know how that turned out. I picked up The Witcher 3 Complete Edition in 2018 and finished it that year, and if you would have told me, I would have had no idea that The Witcher 3 was such a mess at launch, albeit not as severe as Cyberpunk's. That is what Cyberpunk 2077 years down the line has a chance to do. I can foresee another Cyberpunk show or TV series coming out and inflating the Steam sales numbers similarly to how The Witcher Netflix helped catapult Witcher 3 in sales for months. Now let's talk about hands-on impressions and additional confidence in the claim that Cyberpunk 2077 can make that biggest comeback ever. CDPR is not hiding how the game is looking on console. Not only that, while some reviewers have taken the stance of once bitten, twice shy, Phantom Liberty so far has received unanimous praise, even from the most hesitant. Much of it is actually not due to the new content itself, although this does seem to be a strong point as well. No, this praise comes from the gameplay and system tweaks coming in the 2.0 patch, which you won't even have to pay for. From progression and loot to vehicle combat to the police system to cyberware to skill trees and visuals, the team at CDPR has assumed the position of Ripper Doc to their own game. Phantom Liberty is the last chance for CD Projekt Red to not only right many of their wrongs, but to deliver a Cyberpunk game that can manage the impossible, the biggest turnaround in gaming history. Edgerunners gave them the spark they needed. Now all they need to do is keep the flame lit. We all love a great comeback story, an underdog story, and we'll only have to wait to step into Dogtown to see if Cyberpunk has what it takes. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Do check out Wanted Dead in the pinned comment, get your 50% off, and I will see you guys in the next one.